You have...
Well, that statement came out an hour ago, Daniel,
Yep.
and some information has come to me over the subsequent period. It's bigger. I think the temptation is to look at that statement and think, right, well, that's fine. That it applies purely to the next time that any sanctions can be taken or will be taken is when Celtic and or Rangers get through to the semi-final of next year's League Cup Premiership Sport, Premier Sport Cup semi-final. And that is indeed the case. They will both, if they get there, be 500 fans light. So the kind of headline, top line on that is 1,000 Old Firm fans facing Hampden LOCKOUT, right? And that's fair enough. But what is interesting here, and what I strongly suspect we're about to see happening, is this is only the start of a major purge against pyrotechnics inside Scotland's grounds. Mm-hmm. And what's going to affect every group of fans all across the country, if I'm right, and I strongly believe that I'm right, is that because this is an SPFL run competition, the same rules will now be rolled out across the SPFL in general. That means that it's not one you kick the can down the road until, 12 months or 10 months' time when it's semi-finals again at Hampden. This will now be applied, I strongly suspect, on a week-to-week basis across the Scottish game for any offending fans who are involved in any sort of mass pyro event or display. That has a big potential ramification all across the game, because we know that the ultras groups, this is the trend, this is, what they see it from across Europe, they want to copy it. Mm-hmm. It does bring colour, and everybody, says that. It adds to the spectacle, but it's a health and safety issue. It's also illegal, and I think the authorities have decided that they've seen enough, and there now has to be a consequence for this behaviour. It will not be restricted to one competition. Mm-hmm. The SPFL's major competition is its bread and butter, is the week-to-week stuff. Yeah. So I think you can expect similar disciplinary action taken against any groups of supporters who bring pyrotechnics in for a mass event inside any stadium in Scotland. And look, what you're looking at here, first offence, 500. Mm-hmm. Or the first offence is a suspended sentence of 800 tickets. The second, quite clearly, Rangers and Celtic will get hit with 500 for the next semi-final. But if that's your starting point, and we've seen how often that these offences go on and these displays go on, I mean, it happens almost every time Rangers and Celtic go to an away stadium.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it happens inside their own stadiums. So if you don't need to be a mathematician to realise how damaging this could be in terms of getting tickets out to supporters, if these people, and it's just that these groups is for the main part. I know there was an individual at Villa Park who kind of went rogue, but normally, and I don't think, my understanding of, in that instance, one guy brings a smoke. Well, what can you do about that? But where there is clearly organised mass event pyrotechnic displays, the clubs are now going to be hit. And it's not the clubs, it's the fans. It's your normal supporters that are going to find tickets for these matches so much more difficult to come across. And if it's repeat offences, as it has been, then, as I said, you don't need to be a mathematician. If it's 500 first time, what do you think it's going to be the next time?
Aye, potentially huge ramifications. For clubs.
And I congratulate the SPFL for doing this. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's a difficult one, but they've taken the bull by the horns at a time when nobody else seems to be prepared to do it. We've talked a good game. We've talked about, and the football authorities, I really think, have been pushing from the inside really hard to the police and the courts, justice system, to implement football banning orders. To weed these people out and make sure they don't come back. And there's been a lack of that. I think Mike Mulroney, the SFA president, said some time ago the banning orders are actually dropping as the offences are rising. There was only one banning order in the last the previous records of 12 months. Mm-hmm. So that tells you it's not been handled or taken seriously enough by the authorities outside the game. I think it's good to see that the game is now stepping up. Also, you know, again, another thing to bear in mind here, my information again, people might look at that release, this information that's just come out, say, right, okay, so Celtic and Rangers, if they get to the semi-final next year, they're going to be 1,000 fans down between them. And then if there's a repeat display at the semi-finals, there'll be 800 down for the final. But I think it's actually more than that, Daniel. I think the potential punishment is bigger than that. Mm-hmm. What I believe will be the situation is that they'll have a minimum of 800 tickets taken off them for the final, but there is also the possibility and the distinct probability of a disciplinary hearing being convened between semi-final and final, which could then dish out a further punishment.
Could be even bigger. Aye.
So 800 you're looking at as a minimum.
Yeah.
And it could be, I don't know, what, twice that, plus 700, 1,500. So I look at this now and I think I'm hoping that this is seen as a turning point, that either the ultras groups that involve or get involved in this might realise we're now damaging the people that we call our own supporters, our own community. And if they still persist in it, you would think that the other fans, the vast majority, will turn around and take a very kind of disapproving view, because the only people that's getting hurt here are your own fellow supporters.
Well, I mean, I
think it's a smart move.
Aye, but on the supporters, Keith, we've got comments coming in on this, and I'll come to them in a little minute. But I mean, is this in effect strict liability? Basically, you've got in.
It's as close as Scottish football has come to strict liability.
Yeah.
I'd say it's a halfway house, but a sensible one. We've seen UEFA throwing these things out, right? They see something, they don't like it, and people get banned, and there's a zero tolerance approach to it. I think what's happened here, if I'm reading it correctly, is that if the clubs had been seen to act, because this is some time ago now, it's not just, this didn't just happen the other week. Yeah. A lot of time has passed since these semi-finals and since the final, and there has been no action taken, no fans identified, no culprits taken to task or suspended from stadiums, or there has been zero action taken by the clubs. So, you know, what have we got here? Zero tolerance or zero action? And I think the halfway house is that the authorities are now saying, look, guys, we can't just sit back, watch this behaviour going on. And bear in mind, the cup semi-finals were both held back. The kick-off had to be delayed.
Aye.
I think the Celtic game for 14 minutes. I think Rangers Motherwell the following day had to be held back 5 or 6 minutes. You've got TV companies involved that have got, you know, kick-off slots that they're having to, you know, and we know how difficult it is for the Scottish game to get sandwiched into a TV schedule in between whatever's going on down south.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can totally understand. I have complete sympathy, and the SPFL has my entire support on this one. I think it's a strong move.